Hi, welcome back guys, this is your friend, Mr. Fused Fiction Hub, bringing you another amazing story. This is the next part of the story, A Start of Something New, by Garrett Wellist. Chapter 14. Well, nothing sounds good when you put it that way. Letting out a long and heavy sigh, Toshinori finally looked up from the papers to confront this. Gran, I didn't know what I was doing, but I don't think it's irredeemable just yet. I can always deny her offer to dinner and say that I should focus on training the boy instead. But he really couldn't do that, could he? It would break her heart and he's already done enough of that. Besides, he was kind of looking forward to seeing what she could make with the limits of his diet. With a hard look on his face, Gran Torino walked almost all the way up to the table and gave Toshinori his "you better fix this before I beat you" look. Kid, I don't think you realize how far you've dug this grave. There was a pause. Perhaps he was giving Toshinori time to actually think about it, but he was too distracted with writing the urge to just run. Although small, he knew Gran Torino could get at least a few good hits on him before he could even shift forms. Finally, the old man spoke again. This woman and her child are both wrapped around your stupid finger. Ever since you first met them, you've been so tied up then you could barely even act like yourself. You're smitten with them and I'm starting to think it runs the same both ways. Toshinori turned his head slowly, trying to gather just what his mentor was saying. What do you mean, both ways? Inko hates All Might and she barely even knows me at all. Sure, Izuku may be happy about me coming over, but that's just because I'm his idol. He would probably feel the same no matter what other hero it was. Of course All Might was the kid's favorite, but there are other cool heroes out there. What about Endeavor, or Mirko, or that newer one, Camu Woods? Even Wash was a nice person when you get to know the guy. Gran Torino let out another sigh and began rubbing the bridge of his nose as if just talking to Toshinori was giving him a migraine. With all things considered, it probably was. Toshinori, I don't know how to help you not screw up your life any more than you have, but please just stop lying to everyone. I get that you have things you would rather keep to yourself. We all do, but you don't have to hide from this woman too. Besides, did you already tell her about One for All? What else could she possibly be surprised about? The fact that the symbol of peace is a rotting husk. It was too quick of a response to really sound anything but pathetic, but Toshinori knew he was right. If she didn't like him as All Might, Japan's top idol for a perfect man, then why would she was Toshinori Yagi, or gather, Shimura? He could barely even breathe without some kind of help, and that was on a good day. The look Gran Torino gave him said enough to make Toshinori flinch away, but thankfully, there was no real attack. Instead, the old man huffed and began waddling out of the room. Think about it, Toshinori. Just think about it. Izuku spent more parts of his school day secretly working out than actually studying. Sure, he still kept up his grade enough not to worry his mother, but most of the things he read in his workbook just went through one ear and out the other. He was too busy thinking up strategies about the best way to gain as much muscle as he could, as quickly as possible. All Might said that One for All would take a lot of effort and there was no way he wouldn't do as much as he could to get it. The other parts of his day were spent thinking on a good hero name and costume. He had already decided to try out for as soon as he could, which would be in a few years anyway, so he had time. The names Mighty Man and Shining All Might came to mind, but they didn't click. A hero name had to be something that would embody who the hero was and what they stood for. It had to be short enough for someone to call out when they needed help, but all of his ideas fell flat. What are you working on, Izuku? Mom asked in a soft voice as he finished putting something in the oven. Whatever she was making for dinner was new, but it smelled really good. He just hoped it wasn't that gross spinach salad thing he had a few years ago. I'm trying to think of a cool hero name, but nothing's working, he huffed out angrily as he erased another name from his notebook. Half of them just sounded dumb and he could picture Kakin laughing if he ever heard them. That thought only made him feel worse. Well, what do you have so far? She sat down in the chair next to him, her oven mitts sliding off of her hands to rest on the table. I wanted to call myself something close to All Might's name, but I can't decide. All Might Jr.? Almighty? Might. Do you think All Might would be upset if I used his name? He couldn't quite picture his idol getting upset about it, even in his true form, but he didn't want to make him sad or anything. All Might kept saying he would be the next best hero, the symbol of peace, but did that mean he should take the name too? Why don't you try something different, then? I'm sure a lot of kids want to use All Might's name, but no one has tried using yours. She smiled at him helpfully. Izuku gave her a displeased look in response. Mom, no one's gonna want a hero named Izuku. Honestly, what was she thinking? All heroes had something cool. Using his name just felt bland. Mom gave him a pressed look for a moment but didn't get upset. Instead, she grabbed a pencil from beside Izuku's notebook and tapped the eraser against her cheek and thought. Well, she started, why don't you go with something like Bunny Boy? Your costume kind of looks like a rabbit anyway, right? Looking back down at his sketch, Izuku considered it. He hadn't intended for it to look that way. It was supposed to look like All Might's fangs and a design on his earlier costumes. But I don't have a rabbit quirk, he protested. Wouldn't Bunny Boy give off the wrong idea? Besides, there was already someone called the Rabbit Hero and she was in the top 10. He would look like a copier. What about? She thought for a long time. Eventually, Izuku let out a sigh and sunk down in his chair, both legs kicking under the table. Maybe I should just look something up on the computer. There has to be a good idea somewhere there, right? He had found a hero naming generator when he was searching for information on All Might. There were a few good ones, but nothing he could use for himself. A lot of hero names have history behind them, right? Why don't you use something like that? Izuku tilted his head to the side. What do you mean? Like, name myself after someone famous? Mom shook her head softly before pulling out her phone. She typed something up at a really slow pace and eventually, she slid the phone towards him. Izuku looked over the table to find a picture of a hero growing in popularity lately. Ingenium? Izuku asked questioningly. What did that hero have to do with anything? Oh, come on, Izuku. Tell me some facts about this guy. Immediately, his mind started thinking of the things he had written on the page of the hero. Well, he comes from a long line of engine quirk heroes. There isn't much on his quirk specifically, but he has these cool jets on his arms that help him go really fast. He almost broke one of the records but lost by a few milliseconds. He graduated a few years ago from and is already getting close to the top 100. Izuku shouted it as he hopped up on his chair. Mom softly urged him to sit down before asking more specifically, what about his name? Well, Ingenium is a name he got from his dad, who had a similar quirk. The name keeps getting passed down. What about the name did she want him to focus on? Whatever it was, he must have gotten it, because immediately, she snapped her fingers with a smile. It keeps getting passed down. She echoed his earlier words. You see, you don't need a super special name in order to be a hero, just one that will make you stand out from the others. Maybe you could ask All Might about some names you could use about one for all, or maybe even something else. It's up to you. But don't think too hard about it. I think that once you figure it out, you'll know. Izuku felt his cheeks raise in a smile as he thought it through. Yeah, you're right. All Might probably has a lot of cool ideas about names anyway. Just before he could start writing down ideas, he stopped and looked back up at Mom. She was just starting to get up from her seat but paused when she met his gaze. Mom, how did you know that about Ingenium? He can't remember her ever making lists or doing this kind of hero studying. How did she already know about this stuff? Well, it helps when I have such a smart and talented son who knows basically everything about heroes, doesn't it? She gave him a wink before heading back into the kitchen to check on their dinner. As she worked, Izuku's smile widened. He never expected Mom to have so many good ideas. Usually, she doesn't know a lot about hero stuff and always looked at him sadly when he tried making his name or costume. Now, though, she looks kind of happy. Izuku began writing down a few ideas in his notebook, just to make sure that he wouldn't forget them before looking up again. Hey, Mom? He asked, only continuing once she had set the glass dish of food onto the stove to cool and looked at him. What are we eating for dinner? He could smell chicken, but it wasn't katsudon. He would have known a long time ago if it was. Sitting up in his chair, he tried to get a better look at it but frowned when he realized there was green stuff on top. Please don't let it be the spinach salad. Oh, it's a new recipe I wanted to try. Mr. Scheimer can't have most foods so I had to figure something out for tonight. She set her oven mitts down again and began looking at the chicken to ensure it was fully cooked. Wait. Who? Mr. Shimura? Izuku asked out loud. He had never even heard of that name before. It wasn't his principal or one of his teachers, which was a big relief, and it wasn't anyone in his class. Was this a date? Mom went on a date a long time ago, but she came back crying and saying it didn't go well. Was this to make up for that? He hoped so. Whoever made his mom upset must be a bad person. Mom's voice broke Izuku out of a muttering fit he didn't realize he had fallen into. Mr. Shimura is that nice man that helps you train. Remember? Did he not introduce himself? She muttered the last bit to herself, but Izuku could still hear it. The gears in his head turned and turned, trying to connect the face to the name but nothing came up. Instead, he tried using her description but he was lost again. All Might was the only person that trained him. Who is it again? This time, Mom gave him a concerned look. Mr. Shimura. He's really tall and has that messy, blonde hair. He helps you train. And you gave him that All Might toy. Remember? Something in Izuku's mind went off as he finally found the person she was describing. But that didn't make sense. He was still All Might. Did he show it true form to her? So his name is Shimura? He asked questioningly. Some part of it didn't feel right. Was that All Might's real name? Or did he use a fake one like some heroes did? Or it was a secret identity. He remembered asking about that when he first saw the hero's true form. Yes. Did he really not tell you? She looked even more worried this time. Oh, what was a good excuse to use? He just prefers I call him something else, that's all. And what's that? She crossed her arms over her chest, looking upset about something, but he couldn't quite figure out what. He was really bad at this whole lying thing. He likes to be called sensei instead. Yeah, he likes it because it makes him feel old. All Might always talked about being old, even though he was probably only a few years older than his mom, and she wasn't very old at all. Or, at least that's what his basic math supplied him with. How old was his mom again? Anyway, she seemed to consider it before shrugging and turning back around. Well, anyway, he's coming over for dinner today and I decided to cook for the three of us. I hope it turned out good. Wait. What? Thanks for listening to this tale. Make sure you comment, like and subscribe and have a wonderful day.